Last year we talked about metaphysics. How would you describe now? Is there something else? Is there a divine? Is there another reality in your opinion?
Yeah, well, this is a very tricky business, because as soon as you say there is, then you're back in the realm of religion. You're back in the realm of belief. I would rather put it that through language and thought, the human mind has created the human story. And that story is thousands and thousands of years old now. And some of it we know we called history, and some of it's prehistory. As long as humans had language, they had the stories. But the thing that I see quite clearly is that the rest of the world is not in that story. Now there's where the magic bit comes in, because if you see that, you see the human story is something almost separate from the reality that you're living in. But if you look at the reality without the story, you see an enchanted world. The human story disenchants the world. So there's no need to look for another world. The thing is to understand and go into what the human story is, which we're all part of, whether we want to be or not, we are, and see our part in it. And then that enchantment becomes more obvious. You don't have to look for it. And it's not to say the human story is all negative or it's all wrong, but it is only a story. And it comes back to what we were talking about in the spring, that the whole of your life is the distance between your birth and your death. And that belongs to the human story. But this doesn't. What we're in now doesn't belong to the human story. We can have effect on it, but it is not in our story, because it doesn't live in time. It has no time. And that's the difference, I think. So if you can see that enchantment, you don't need the matter. It's not a matter of saying there is no matter, although that's what Nietzsche said. The matter is not necessary to look for. Because the matter is only necessary to look for if you don't see that you're in a story. That's what I would say about that.
Can you elaborate a little more on that human story?
Well, it's an extraordinary story, that's for sure. It's like the sum total of human experience put into thought, language, and words. That's what it is. And it's got some incredible threads in it, but it's still disconnected.
From reality.
Disconnected from the everyday reality of the world we live in, wherever that is.
Yeah. How could we reconnect?
Well, you have to understand the story. That's why you need to make the free inquiry into that story, without bias, without conditioning, without saying this is good and that's bad, as again Mr. Nietzsche said, beyond good and evil, and see the story. And as you go into the entire human story, and you make that inquiry in, you will see that there's also a way out of it.
How can you get out of the story as a human?
By understanding that it's a story.
And the will to get out?
The will to get out comes from the inquiry into it, because if you go into a sustained inquiry into the human story, along the way you will see the way out of it. And doesn't mean to say you become non-human or that you reject it or whatever. You just realize that it's only a story. It's a part. It's not the whole. And this is the whole problem with intellectual focus and things like science is they forget that we're living in a whole. There's no parts, actually. They're artificial. There's a whole. So everything in the world is happening, whether it's a giant city or the most terrible war or the incredible beauty, it's all part of a reality. It's not separate, but that whole holistic view goes all the way back to the Vedic tradition, what they call Advaita, which is non-divided, non-dual, not monotheistic either. See, we can't actually really separate ourselves from the world we're in, as much as we try to do that all the time. You can't. And so people see things that they consider to be negative. So they try to separate themselves from that negative. Say you're living in a giant, noisy, dirty, polluted city. So what do? You go out in the country and you try to live out there, but you're taking your story with you. So you're not actually connecting to the new place. It's just scenery, because you don't understand the story that created the city.
What is the root cause of dualism?
That goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden story. What happened there? The knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Knowledge created the separation. Because as some people pointed out, there was another tree in the Garden of Eden called the tree of life. Had Adam and Eve taken the fruit from that tree, they would end up seeing that they live in a hole. So you can only destroy the world or another person if you don't see the whole picture. Undivided, individual, undivided. And in my own studies, a great deal of it was uncovering the problem with the worldview that evolved out of Europe, the dualistic worldview. And of course, the early religions tried to pull it together, but they did that by creating a monotheistic entity. But that didn't work either, because they had to create that. They didn't see that it's already here.
What means the word individual?
It means undivided. It means not divided. As in the word individual.
Yeah.
Undivided.
Obviously on a psychological level.
I guess you could say that, but it's at all levels. How divided are we from the water and the food and air we breathe? We're not. We're all of us sitting here, these animals, you and I, as insects flying around, we're all breathing the same air. We've got the same moisture in us. Are we actually that separate? No. We all do the same things. Even the trees, what are they doing right now? They're breathing and making more cells and storing up sugars. The living things are not divided at all.
But most people believe they are individuals, yet they are in constant conflict. They are divided within themselves. One thought says the opposite of the other.
Yes, well, that's the process of conditioning. That's how you fit into an authoritative system, is you're divided. A person who is not divided cannot be manipulated by any system or any system of thinking, any religion. They can't be motivated by fear. For the current world system, they're very frightening kinds of people, those rare, undivided people. Remember, Krishnamurti said if he could find 10 of those people, he could change the whole thing. That's all, 10. But at the end of his life, he didn't find them.
No.
But it's still possible.
So how could we become undivided?
Undertake the inquiry into the human condition. Because if you do that, you'll see where the division comes from. If you see where the division comes from, you can become undivided.
where should one start with this inquiry?
Well, we're all born into a culture and a place and a situation. We all live within certain aspects of the great story. You start wherever you like. Just keep going into it and into it. It requires a lot of time and effort, and it requires sustained inquiry into it. You're not going to find it out in 5 minutes. You're not going to get it off YouTube either. You have to go. You have to go and do some serious work and some serious living and experience things and make your life into an experiment. Not a scientific experiment, but the experiment of actually living all these things to see what is this and what is that, what's the next thing. Not having distance from it.
तुझे हुआ